record this. I'm also going to make sure and mute everyone so we don't get any background noise.
Somebody's got a little bit. I don't know if you guys can hear it.
Yeah.
So look, I mean, for me, I'm not a huge person about talking about myself, but I'll give you a little bit of background. I mean, I got into, like I said, computers when I was a child, probably about 7 years old. But I mean, I really got into online marketing and getting involved with websites and Facebook and social media and SEO and everything, probably about 10 years ago or so. I stumbled across it very, haphazardly and was very passionate about it. It was very interesting to me how much opportunity there was with the web and how we were transitioning and the limitations in the buy cycle that traditional, buying had and how online could really solve that. And so I got into social literally 10 years ago. They didn't call it social media back then. It was called viral marketing. It was an SEO play to really try to go out and get authority. And I really fell in love with it. And the first site I made was kind of a joke site. It was a site called Weird Asia News, which I sold a while back. But, it was really a kind of a fun, humorous site. And I started testing with it. And I really quickly found through social that I could get a ton of visibility. And I was able to get a lot of authority. The site ranked really, really high. And through all that, it was a hobby at first. And so I spent a lot of time with coders and developers, and I would, poke through the sites and figure out how to code and learn how to do it. So, I mean, it was probably like 1997 when I was sitting in a cafe and writing HTML from a how to write HTML book that I had found in the cafe with a cup of coffee, just sitting there writing out a snowboarding site and a hobby site, and using those, I don't know if you remember that the old mailbox animations where it'd have the mail fly out of the mailbox and, oh, mail me, right? So I started making a bunch of websites there, started making, these sites about 10 years ago, which was, a lot more advanced. And the core behind what I really always wanted to focus on was success. I mean, it's a nice idea to make something look pretty. There's absolutely a benefit to having a website that, looks good and performs and inspires and impresses people. But the core of what was always important to me was avoiding pitfalls and roadblocks. A lot of people, when they look at marketing in general, the view is, what can I do to get ahead? And a lot of times, an equally valuable view is, how do I avoid getting knocked back? A lot of times that is an important question you have to ask as well. And I think that when you look at marketing, it's very easy to go, oh my God, I had no idea what to focus on. There's like a billion things out there. Everybody says their little thing is the most important thing in all of marketing. And then you have all the people who want to play on the fact that it's like, let me give you my one-stop, solution. It will guarantee put you on the front pages of, of all the search engines, right? And we always laugh about that because it's like, if you could do that, why would you have a business? It's just like, sit back and make the millions and let everybody else do their stuff. But so I've always found that the biggest problem in all my 10 years of consulting or work is that people end up spending a ton of time and energy going down a path, and they have no idea if it's going to benefit them or not. They have no idea whether it's going to be helpful. And a lot of times it's completely wasted space and wasted effort. And so I find that a lot with websites as well. When you work with Google, when you think about it, it's like, look, people can type in your website, but when people are typing in your website name, they know you. That's PR, that's brand association, that's customer service. It's not marketing. Like, you need people to find you through the channels that they're looking for, right? So you want to be on search and you want to be in social and you want to be in these different places. And what things can limit you from being there? I started to find in my relationships with the search engines that a lot of times it was not how good you were doing. It was, the positive things. It was, are you avoiding the negative things? Getting bad links to your site, putting your site in a bunch of directories, things that you think are beneficial, but actually have been flagged by the search engines as potentially spammy or, systematic to low quality. And you think you're doing something good, and you're actually eliminating your chance to ever rank. So how many people, sign up and like, oh, I can get a bunch of links. I can get my site on a bunch of article sites or a bunch of directories. This service is like $99. And this was very popular like 5 years ago. People would do this. Well, the search engines learned really quickly that these services were being provided, and they would discredit everything that people were buying. They would just say, oh, well, we don't care about that. We're not going to include that in our authority view of the site. And so when we're creating sites now, the first thing we focus on is, one, where are people searching? What's the path that they're going through, right? And two, how do we make sure that we don't eliminate the opportunity for us to even have a space in the game? And so I think that kind of leads into right now really the discussion around mobile friendly. And I think mobile friendly, let me share my screen real quick and I'll show you a little something if you don't mind. So, mobile friendly is probably the most important thing that you can think about right now. And when we talk about mobile friendly, it's not just having a website that when you go and you click it in on a mobile device, it shows your logo and it shows your header. And these are good things. There's definitely a value to saying, look, when somebody lands on my page, I want to have a call to action. I want to have, I want them to recognize my brand and my logo. I want them to find the information that they want to find. But, I'm showing you a screenshot right now of an announcement from Google from April this year. You can get into reading a lot of this, and there's a lot of updates from Google on this. But basically what Google said is, when people are searching on mobile, if you don't have a mobile-friendly site, they are going to eliminate you from the search results. The problem is that like maybe 2% of all people that would ever see these messages would never have an issue with not being mobile-friendly. So all the companies out there who didn't or don't understand where to find this messaging from Google, how to understand what it means, all they know is they just got less leads out of the blue, because they were eliminated on April 21st from the search results. And a lot of people are searching on mobile. And so the next big thing that I think is very interesting is that this is an article from May that came out this year where Google said just a couple months ago, for the very first time, mobile searches now outbeat desktop searches worldwide. So more people search on a mobile device today than they do on a desktop. And that will continue in that trend. So mobile is super, super important. But if it's so important and you're not found, then it doesn't matter what efforts you're doing. It doesn't matter how pretty your logo looks. It doesn't matter how anything matters. Because if you're simply excluded from search, it's a moot point. And so first and foremost, you have to be included. And so we focus primarily on these type of things when we're looking at a website. So the first thing we look at is it mobile friendly? But mobile friendly is also kind of a broad term, because does it load properly is just the first parameter. The next thing is, does it load quickly? Does it break, or does it work on all devices? And so they have, Google has something they call page speed score. And so Google has always had what they call a quote unquote authority score. A page rank is what they named it actually. And they rank sites based on their authority. And same thing goes for mobile. They have a mobile authority score. And you can go and run your site through the tester, and it will tell you what your score is. So the thing is that if somebody's sitting in a dentist office and they're thinking to themselves, man, I just drove by this karate dojo. My son's been bugging me about karate. I've now got to sit here for 30 minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look that place up. I don't remember the name, but I remember, it's, Boca Raton Karate or something like that. I'm going to, Boca Raton Martial Arts. I'm going to search this site. The reality is I don't know how many of you have done this, but when I sit in a dentist office, I always get one bar. I don't get a great reception on my cell phone. So when I'm loading a website, it takes forever to load a website. So when you make a beautiful website on desktop, and you put these big images that are beautiful of your classrooms, of your dojos, of your recent events, they might be, especially with cell phones, and the capability of taking photos today, these images are like 1.5 meg, 2 meg, 3 meg sometimes. That's a lot to load when you have one bar on a mobile device and you're loading 25 of these images. So a part of when we talk about being mobile friendly is about recognizing that these images have to be reduced for mobile. There's a lot of code that's required for a website to work on a desktop that's not required for a mobile. And so they have a term called minifying code, making it shorter, making it cleaner, making it a smaller data size. Those are also things that need to be done to a website in a mobile sense in order for them to score higher on Google's scoring. And the thing about that is that you can say whatever you, I think it loaded fine. But if Google says, no, I don't think it loaded fine, and they give you a low score, they're going to rank you based on that score. So it's very important to be mobile friendly, not just in view, but in practical application, right? So, I mean, just to give you an example, I don't know whose site this is. I just Googled like locally martial arts. So if this is somebody's site, I'm not picking on anybody. I don't know. But this is a decently, visually appealing site, right? I mean, it looks nice. It's got some call to actions and stuff. But when you run the page speeds on it, you get a 54 out of 100, right? So anything up to 70, well, actually, technically 69 is red, which means that they don't view it as good. If they get 70 to 79 is yellow, and 80 to 100 is green. So when you come in, we can come in and we can look at this and we can determine quickly, we need to eliminate JavaScript that's rendering on the page, right? We need to enable compression. You can come in and you can look and you can see, we can reduce it by 75%. We can reduce the code by, compressing it. A lot of high-level kind of terminology and wording, but essentially these are quick fixes that we can go in and do to the site to bring that score up. And our goal is to always have an 80 or higher. Sometimes you get stuck in like the 78%. Just so you know, if you're ever looking at this on your own and you're like, I can't get to the green. Like, how do I get to 80? Sometimes you can't. There's certain things that they request that are truly not really required of a site. It's just suggestions. And sometimes you can't. But the thing you definitely don't want to do is be in the red. And you can kind of, you can switch back and forth between mobile and desktop and kind of get your scores and kind of figure out, how does it work and whether the scores are there. So number one thing, mobile friendly, it means more than just visual, it means code. And you have to check it against Google, you have to check it against Bing, you need to check it in general. Most of the time, everybody follows Google's standard. So if you're good with Google, you're pretty good with just about everybody. So it's kind of the gold standard. But that's like important, number one, and that's where we focus a lot. And to give you an example, we just went through Monday and checked all the scores on our sites, and they dropped because we just added 2 new plugins and we made some edits during the week, and WordPress just made a big update. So we're going through yesterday and today, and we're doing all kinds of new minifications. So we actually try to check every time we make an edit, we check for the page speed. Every time there's an update, we check for the page speed, and about once a month we check page speed scores because sometimes they adjust and the new things come out, new standards come out, and we have to jump on it. So that's our number one priority. Greg, I don't know how do you want to like stop after like we talk about different sections and kind of give an opportunity for questions so that it stays fresh in mind since we're talking about mobile?
I think if we can kind of wait till you go over your next section, just so we don't get lost in too many questions. Okay, that's fine. And if I'm going too high level or if I'm speaking too fast, like somebody, you can unmute yourself and say, Brent, slow down, shut up, speak easier or whatever. It's habit for me just because this is my world. So just like a doctor's talking to you about stuff and kind of goes a mile a minute and you're like, I don't know any of those terms. Am I dying or what? I'm just amazed on how much work is behind the scenes. The biggest problem, and that's why a lot of times people will ask us about other people doing the sites. And I'm like, look, a designer and a developer and a marketer come from different points. And it's very important to understand like the starting point, right? If anything that you're doing, when you have a focus that you start on, it doesn't mean that you exclude everything else, but you are going to focus more on what your passion is or what you think is the most important. And you're going to kind of scope every other angle to support that, right? So when a designer puts together a site, when a designer puts together any kind of graphical design, what they care about is
designing what you want. If you say, I want this to be red, I want it to have this colors, I want it to have these words, they're going to say, okay, I made that and I gave it to you. A good design company will, even if you're making a poster, will tell you there is a psychology around design and how it influences people to make decisions. Certain colors mean certain things. The way it's laid out allows people to adjust. Our eyes, when we review something, it's very top down to the right, then back over down to the right. And every time it goes down and to the right, it doesn't go as far. So when you look at something the first time, you'll look all the way to the right. But when you go down, you only look a little bit. And then as you get to the bottom, you stop paying attention. And so there's certain things that have to flow in order for the eyes to actually digest information in a certain way. This is very high level kind of marketing design, but this is what goes into posters. And this is why they have influence over people, right? So when a designer is doing that, they're not wrong. They're just not thinking about the marketing side. They're thinking about the design side. So when they complete a project, they're correct. When somebody goes to develop a website and they're just a developer and they don't have the background on these other elements, they're like, does it function? Does the form pop up? Does the page scroll? Does it have a navigation? Does it have the pictures you want? Check, 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 check. They did their job. They didn't do a bad job. They did their job. They're just not doing it with marketing in mind. What we're focused on is the marketing side. We do all the other things. We still want it to look pretty. We still want it to function right. But we're focused on the marketing side first and foremost. And so that's why there's a lot of this back-end stuff. And that's why you'll see that a lot of the other people kind of don't focus on it, is because their background is development. Their background is designing. Our background is marketing. We just happen to be good at developing and designing because for 10 years we've done hundreds of projects and we've had to learn how to do it. We've had to function well in that regard. So another cool thing that people might or might not know about right now is schema. Schema is a word for a type of code. Schema is a type of code that was created that everybody universally kind of accepted and agreed upon. So let me give you an example. This is a site that has schema on it. So this is how the back end of a website looks if you've never looked at it. And I'm not a developer, so I can hack through this. I understand what it means, but it's not like I wrote this from scratch or something. But what you'll see right here at the top is you'll see this thing that says, context schema. And schema will say that this business, this website is a local business. And it has a postal address, and this is what that postal address is. And it has a description, and this is what that is, and it has a name, and it has a telephone number, and it has a URL, and it has a logo in it. You can even get into products. You can add in products. You can say, I've got recipes. You can say, I've got, all of these different things, right? And one of the things that I actually noticed that's not here that I need to go look at is hours. It should have hours of operation, so I need to go back and add that. It's a new schema thing that they just added, and I haven't put in yet. But you can put a lot of cool things in here. Now, what's that mean? What it means is this is a universally accepted detail that you can add to any site, and there's more code to it up on the top. Unfortunately, it's not quite the easiest thing to add, so you have to kind of code it to recognize it and then to read it, and the recognizing code's a bit longer, so it's a little complicated to add, but they should make it a lot easier, and hopefully they will someday. But what it does is it says, hey, if you're Facebook, Google, Bing, or any site out there, when you see this, you recognize it and accept it. So if you see, things in search, kind of like this picture, where you see underneath Yelp, it will tell you how many ratings it has. And it will say things like the price range. And you can see under recipes, sometimes it'll show the entire recipe on a search result. Or if it's a music site, it will show the playlist. And you'll notice sometimes it will show like your Google Plus reviews. Or it will show whether you're open or not. If you're looking for restaurants, you see this a lot because restaurants really use a lot of schema. And it will say like, hey, this restaurant is open right now, or it's closed. And you're like, oh, that's very useful. Well, it's not Google doing that. That's schema. That's what happens when the code is on a site. Any site out there from Facebook to Google who recognizes schema, they'll use it in different ways. But you could search a restaurant on Facebook and it will tell you what the price range are or whether it's open or not. You could search what kind of services somebody has and it shows up. It's an improved type of result that you can get in all types of search. So you can see like schema events. It will show the dates. So if you actually have like a lot of dates, you can actually put in event dates and it will show up in your search results. as event dates. And you can also add in, this is another example for doing ratings, right? So there's like games do a lot of this where they'll put the ratings. You can also put authors, and you can see that they have authors and so forth. So it actually tells who's writing it. The schema list, if you go to schema.org, is really long. Like the options for you to put data in there go into almost every industry, have multiple different levels. But what we focus on is local business, and it's something that we try to make sure we add as well to the sites. Excuse me. And so that's essentially schema. And that's something that I think a lot of people will begin to add more and more as the years go by, and it will become more popular, but it's something that we're focused on right now adding to the sites. So again, it's like mobile friendly, it has schema, so it shows up a little better. A lot of things don't necessarily matter about the rankings. For instance, a lot of people will say schema is about SEO. Schema has absolutely nothing to do with SEO. There's nothing about schema that's going to make you rank higher or lower. That's a false thing. Some people like to say that because it helps them kind of, hey, I added schema and I helped your rankings, and they can kind of package it into SEO, but it has nothing to do with SEO. That's confirmed by Google and all the search engines. What it does, though, is it improves your click-through rate. When somebody lands on a search result and they see 5 or 6 different results, and one has stars and it looks like a good rating, they tend to click on that more. And one thing that does affect SEO is click-through rate. If somebody shows up on a search result and they click on a website and they go through that website, that will tell Google that it was a good result, and they will over time potentially move you up. I do say potentially because there's so many different signals and so many different factors, but it's good is the short answer. It's good in a lot of regards. And it's something that, you should definitely have on your site. One of the things I hear from a lot of martial arts, dojos, and just, I don't know, I didn't mention this earlier, but I'm a martial artist myself. I train Muay Thai. My son's in jiu-jitsu. We trained out of American Top Team in Coconut Creek for many years. I have friends with a lot of UFC guys. I'm very, very involved in martial arts and the fight game. And so I do have a sense of this industry. Maybe not in every single component. I'm not very familiar with Krav Maga personally, but I know what it is and I know what it's used for and I know where it comes from. One of the things that we talk about that comes up in a lot of conversations is I live in Boca, but I'm on the border of Boca and Delray's right next door. My address puts me in Boca, but I'm being excluded from showing up when people are in Delray searching because they're searching Delray martial arts because people think that way. How do I do that, right? So there is elements to SEO that can benefit you. And SEO is one of those things that, to be honest, you're either going to do 2 things at a low level. And when I say low level is underneath a couple $1,000s a month budget. You're going to either do 2 things. You're either not going to do it or you're going to figure it out on your own. All the offerings out there are very tough because the time it takes to really go into SEO takes a lot of testing. It takes reviewing what those tests did. It takes a lot of coding, a lot of keyword research, a lot of effort. What we've managed to do is we've managed to go through and say, well, look, we're not going to do perfect SEO. We're not going to try to, but what if we could pick the lowest hanging fruit? What if we could at least identify whether or not people in your area are searching for your city, or if there's a regional name that people are searching for, or if there's a term that relates to that part of town. For example, I have a friend who has a gym in Charleston, North Carolina, and they call that area low country where he's at. People don't think like that. I'm going to put it in Charleston, but a lot of people will search low country when they're searching because that's the term that they use for their area. So there's research that can be done relatively quickly with the right tools. Luckily, I know most of the tool owner, companies, and so we get access to all their tools. And so we can run through, some tools that typically cost $5-10 grand a month, and we have access to. We can run a couple quick reports, take the low-hanging fruit from the reports, and we can come back and say, these are the key phrases that we should be focusing on. These are the terminologies about the area. So what we do is we do SEO audits, and again, I do want to be very transparent. It's not like a 45-page corporate SEO audit that you go and spend 10 grand for. It's not the same. But what we're doing is we're saying 90% of what a corporate audit presents to you, you're not going to do anyway, because it's complicated, it's time consuming, and most people just don't follow through. So what we looked at is what's the 10% that people would actually, that can actually be done relatively quickly, that will have an impact, and won't take a ton of our time and energy, that we can kind of, position at a lower cost as a part of an offering. So we figured that out. We have a process for doing it, and it's something that we're doing right now with, doing SEO audits. But, takeaways, because I don't want this to be like, oh, this is what we do, and if you don't, tough. Takeaways, you need to think about what people actually search for. So often I see this with small businesses. They'll focus on, well, I've been in this industry for 20 years, and this is what it should be called, and this is how it should be mentioned and how it should be described. That doesn't matter to a parent who just wants their kid to take martial arts. You have to take yourself out of that role for a second and think about, what are people actually searching? Go in and look at, your analytics, if you have analytics running on your site, and look at what people actually searched when they found you and they ended up in your site. Because a lot of times the terminology is different. You're like, I'm karate, and they're like, they use martial arts, or they use taekwondo, or they use judo, because they don't know. They're just using whatever phrase they happen to remember from the last movie they saw when they're looking to go get it. I don't know how many people sign up for jujitsu and they searched karate, because that's what everybody thinks, right? So it's important to say something in your dialogue that's like, similar to karate, jiu-jitsu is a martial arts that is widely practiced. That usage of the word is very natural. It flows well. It doesn't sound like you're trying to say we're karate and jiu-jitsu, but what it does is it gets the terminology into your text. So thinking about what people actually search for, thinking about what keeps a parent from signing up. They don't want their kid to get hurt. What keeps an adult from, signing up? They don't want to be embarrassed. So approaching, the terminology that people might search, approaching the terms that you want people to find you for, and also knowing what converts the most for you. What class, what age, what thing converts the most to you? Do kids bring parents, or do parents bring kids? Like, what's the flow of getting the full family in? And understanding that is something you already do on a regular basis, but transitioning that into a strategy that you're going to say, I'm going to go back and look at my website, the way I title my pages, because the title on your page is the most important thing. You have to think about your website setup like you would a book in a library. A book in a library has to be filed. It has to be put somewhere. You walk in a massive, Library of Congress type library, and you say, I'm looking for a specific book, and there's no organization, no terminology, no title on the book. Good luck. So you want to try to think of it like that. How do I have a good title that's catchy so that when people get to the section, they want to read it, but it's also specific so that it's not misconstrued and filed somewhere else? How do I have a description on the back of the book? How do I properly set up the titles and the chapters? And all of these things are known indexing standards that we've used for hundreds of years. When Google created the search engines, they didn't just say, we're going to screw it, we're just going to make our own system up. They use authority signals that mirror real life authority. They use indexing standards that mirror real life indexing standards. So your title is your most important thing on your page. And it needs to include some terminology, but it also needs to be quality. It can't just be like karate, jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, low price, call us. It can't be spammy. It has to say who you are, but it also needs to use terminology that matches up with what you're wanting to rank for, because otherwise you won't get indexed in the right place and in the right way. So your title, your header tags, the H1s, the headers, the big messaging, the individual terms that you use on your pages. You need to reference, located in Boca Raton, next to Delray Beach, so that you have the terminology Delray Beach in the page. Now you can start to say, oh, we have these things. Some people, they like to have addresses on the page because it does help a little bit. So some people will say, just down the street from Walmart, and then they'll put the Walmart that's in the next town so they can actually put an address that matches up, so they can start to be associated with locations and zip codes and things like that. So there's definitely a sense of understanding this and trying to apply it. But the easiest way I can explain it, because it's a very in-depth process, is think about how people actually are searching you. Think about the area and the terminology, and try to incorporate what you think they're searching for into your title tags and the descriptions and the texts on each one of your pages. That itself can be a huge increase in your rankings. And the second thing I'd say from SEO is authorities online are like links. If you're doing a charity, ask if the charity will link to you. If you're doing a demonstration at a local school, ask them if they'll link back to your site. If you have friends in the community, but other businesses, you know, maybe you're doing a collaboration with somebody for equipment or whatever, ask them if they'll link back to you. Links are recommendations. And when you're looking for something in the world, recommendations is where you go. And that is the same translated online. When you have links that point to your site, it's Google's sense of saying, hey, everybody's saying this is a good place to go. We should go there. We should recommend them more. So those are the three main points that I wanted to kind of talk about today. The importance of mobile and how literally it's not just about doing good, but it's about whether or not you're even included. And so if you're thinking, maybe I should focus on mobile, that's a question for 3 years ago. Right now, if you're not focused on mobile, you're failing. You're losing. You're gone. You're invisible. So you have to focus on mobile. Schema, although not necessarily required, very, very, very important, I think, for distinguishing yourself from your competition. And let's face it, most people, and if you're not an adult who's really into MMA or into martial arts, you don't really care who the instructors are. You're not really thinking like, did they compete at ADCC like 3 years in, you know, the last 3 times? And did they win medals? And did they come from a Gracie Academy? Or you're not looking at that. You're just like, is it close by? So you have to stand out from your local competition and search, because the parents who are searching for this are just looking for who's close by and who looks like they're not going to kill their kid. And that's about it. And so you have to, you know, get into the schema to help with that. And the SEO helps a lot for that as well, to make sure that you get the terminology in there.
I can see why the schools that have one of their high school students do their websites probably aren't getting the same type of results.
You know, there's so many factors. If that kid just happens to be, you know, somebody who gets some, you know, awesome links from their friends, they could do all right. But yeah, there's definitely a lot that goes into it. And to be honest, I'm really not diving that deep.
Well, can we just take 1 second to see if anyone has any questions? If you have questions, you can just unmute yourself.
Yeah, I really would like to say, even, I mean, any questions. I don't want just to be like, look at me, you know, like if I can help anybody in any way right now, better understand something, you know, apply it to what you're doing. Even if you have a question about, well, I did this, do you think it's a good idea? You know, let's take the moment while I'm here, and I'm happy to kind of elaborate on anything.
Mr. Baker, you always like to speak up. I saw when he was going through the schema, he had your school information up there. This is Tom Baker.
Hi.
Hi, Tom. How you doing?
Good. You know, you mentioned that you're just touching the surface. So I guess my question would be, at 55 years old, is there a way I can do some self-education? Is there a website, or is there, a place I can start learning how to do this a little bit better on my own time?
You know, the thing that you need to do first before you do that, the short answer is absolutely. Absolutely. The one thing that marketers are doing right now to distinguish themselves is that they want to pick one area to be an expert in, right? So me right now, when it comes to the marketing side, not the design, my thing right now is Reddit. So all I write about, all I speak about, everything I do talks about the social site Reddit, right? There's a lot of people out there that do this. They're experts in link building. They're experts in schema. They're experts in mobile page speed. They're going to pick a niche so that they can distinguish themselves in this big industry, right? And identifying a couple people that are doing this will help you to identify sources for where you can read about what they're doing. And the question you have to ask first and foremost is, what do you want to do? And that's a tough question, right? What do I want to do? And I think that what I typically tell people where to start is start with something you're passionate about. Start with something that you use every day. If you don't use Twitter and you're thinking about social media, right? If you're thinking about social media and you're like, I want to do better, updates. I want to get more exposure. I want to do more. And you've never touched Twitter, but you're on Facebook, do Facebook because you're already there. It's already a part of your daily life. The hardest thing for people is to break away from tradition and do something. That's why dieting sucks. That's why exercising is tough for a lot of people. It's because you have to actually stop your life and go do it, or you have to interrupt your life to do it. So if you can find, if you're on Facebook already and you understand how it works, then I would spend time on Facebook. If you're on Twitter already, but when it comes to the coding, when it comes to the SEO, when it comes to these things, what I would focus on is not the technical side. I would focus more on the influence, like how it works and how do you get in front of more people, engagement, how you can engage more people. The world is going towards social. Social is not really a tool. It's the way I best explain it is when we started the internet, it was the 1%. It was the guy who walks in the store and knows exactly what he wants to buy. And all he wants from you is to tell him which is the right amp, voltage for, which one has the right amp voltage, right? Don't pitch me anything. Just tell me what I need to know so I can buy what I need. The rest of the world needs, multiple touch points. In marketing, we say you need 7 to 9 touch points to brand somebody. That's why there's all the flyers and you see the commercial and you see the radio ad and you see the billboards, and then you get to the store and it has the flyers outside and they're handing you a flyer when you walk in, and they have the sale signs, because you need this kind of brainwashing in order for them to force you to buy something that you had no idea you wanted, right? So the 99% is really more what social is, and smartphones has brought everybody online. So social actually did something that was really incredible. It transitioned the idea of an internet being something you do for an hour a day to being a layer on your life. Social media is, for most people, technology for most people at this point has become a part of them, a part of their lives. And so I think social is probably the best place to spend energy right now. People like us who can, make a website, or anybody else who can make a website, you getting in and learning coding, learning how to add schema, these things are too small in the big scheme of things for you to be able to have longevity in your efforts. But spending time on Facebook, I think Facebook is this is the thing, I'll tell you a little bit about social now. So Facebook is very family oriented. People go there for family and friends. They're there to connect with people. They're there to enjoy that connection. People on Twitter are spending time. They're in a line, they're bored, they're looking to get some quick information, or something has happened in the world, like a travesty or some kind of news, and they want a quick update, so they go to Twitter. That's the purpose that Twitter serves. Google Plus is a very research and very local business, small business oriented social site. Instagram is younger kids, brands, celebrities. Each one of these has their own niche. Facebook, to me, for what you're doing in the martial arts space, is the best social media site for you. It's going to be the connecting point, which I think is a strong connecting point for people signing up for your business. And so I would spend time on Facebook, and I would spend time Googling guides and going in Google, when you search in Google, there's advanced query option. It's a pull down bar. So you can say, advanced, additional, so forth. Let me see if I can find what it's called. I'll just show you. When you go to Google, you search something like martial arts. You see this button called search tools, and it has any time as an option underneath it. And you can go in here and you can say, I only want to see results from a certain time period. So if you were to go in and put last month, right, and you would put in like Facebook tips, what you're going to get is you're going to get articles that are within the last month that, might be, good, and it might be pretty solid, right? So you see right here, you have like marketing professionals, 5 tips for brands that want to succeed on Facebook. So going in here and starting to read through some of this can definitely help you. If you want to start spending time on your own and really getting into it on your own. I think there's definitely a level of knowledge that you can get by reading some of the guides out there to help your everyday on social. It's definitely something that can benefit you. But I always do warn that it's important to know the value of your time as well. So, if you want to get in and play with stuff, I would say Facebook is the place to do it. Learning how to do engaging updates, spending time, really spend time in your insights on Facebook. On your Facebook page, spend time in your insights and just look. What are people responding to? I always tell people the best thing you can do in marketing is research. Go look at 10 different pages that you think are doing well in martial arts on social, and then look at the different posts and look for the ones that actually have engagement. What were they about? What were the topics? What did people say? This will tell you a lot about what you could do and what would resonate well with your audience. And then go into your own insights when you start testing. Do images, do link updates, do video updates, do news updates, do questions, quizzes, ask things. Play around with different types of updates, and then look at what works for you. That would be the area I think that you should you could spend time yourself and grow yourself in the space of marketing. Getting into the coding and stuff is going to be time limited. So you go in and learn Schema, and 3 months from now they launch a Schema tool that just integrates with every site, and you no longer have to know it. I think your window for that knowledge being useful to you in tech is very short, unless that's something that that's your career field. Because everything we're talking about today, like I was going to tell you about, one of the things that's happening right now is this AMP project. So as I mentioned, Google, Facebook, and Apple, they don't want to be a website. They want to be your entire web experience. And their goal is to eliminate the internet, period. So Facebook wants you to use a Facebook phone to access through their Facebook internet, their system. And they want to be what they call the Internet of Things, all of the internet. That's what they want, complete domination. So what they did is they released a concept called instant articles. And instant articles is a way for publishers to basically provide the content through Facebook, so that when it loads in Facebook, it loads instantaneously, like super, super fast. Has no ads, it has Facebook ads, but it doesn't have your tracking, doesn't have your ads, doesn't have your call to actions. It's just the content. It's just the information, right? Now, I'm sure as small businesses get into this program, there'll be options for that. But right now it's for publishers. And Google just launched last week what they call accelerated mobile pages, which is the exact same thing, where they basically are trying to change your habits for using the internet away from this concept of a laptop and websites and going to search and looking at things. They want you finding everything through them. And so when you go and you start learning all this stuff because you want to better your business, something like this is going to come along and substantially change everything the next day. And so if it's not your core career, I would just be careful about diving too much into stuff that's going to be phased out within 12 months to like 2 years.
Great.
We have time for just one more question, Brent, because we're running out of time. Someone wrote in, effective language on a website that sells, that entices and increases conversation has always been a problem for me. Is there a resource that can help me improve and optimize the language I use on my websites?
There's not really a resource. There's some basic things of understanding. This question kind of bridges between like doing it for SEO and doing it for conversion. When it comes to selling, right? It's really tough because you know your market and you know your audience and you know how you deliver. So you have to be able to know what you can deliver on and what makes you special. Like each instructor has something that I'm more caring. I'm very patient. I can motivate people. I'm good with kids. Like there has to be something that sets you up for success. And so really focusing, on what that language is that you resonate with and explaining things in a way that sells it to people that are similar minded, I think is the strongest thing I would suggest when it comes to writing language to selling. And that's no matter what field you're in. Knowing the subtle language points is going to resonate with people that are looking for those same qualities. And so I think writing in that perspective is valuable, but it really comes down to a little bit of research. Like, what do you offer? What is it that makes that something people want? And really just drawing this out. And the reason I say draw it out is because once you start getting into the finer points of what are the reasons why this sells, these are the terminology that you want to start looking at. Then you want to start doing what they call LSI, which is latent semantic indexing. And it's terminology choice. I say I'm looking for a car. You say you're looking for a vehicle. We're looking for the same thing, but we're using two different terminologies. But when I say I'm looking for a car, there's terms that should be used. When somebody says they're looking, when they provide martial arts, there's terminology like kicking, punching, belts, gis, dojos. These are terms that are expected to be mentioned when you talk about a certain category, and you need to mention them because from a search perspective, that is very important to cementing, what you do as being authoritative. But psychologically, it also is good for people because they know those terminologies too. And the more touch points that you can emphasize on that resonate with somebody is going to inspire confidence that you're the right person. So knowing what your passions are so that you can speak to those elements properly, and then exploring all the little focus points around what you're offering in that area to find those related terms, to find those words. And then once you have a list of words and a concept, then put yourself in their position and write to them. And I think that would be the way that I would focus.
Excellent, sir. I really want to thank you for your time. Now, if people want more information about what you do through Get Students, should they contact Valerie at getstudents.com?
Yeah, Valerie's a great starting point. I mean, she has the majority of what we offer, because we offer 3 different packages. So there's like the basic website. Then there's one that's kind of like the middle ground, like you want to do a little bit more. And then there's one that really has everything. And the one that really has everything has like all the schema, the SEO audits, because we do like a special SEO audit, things like that. So contacting Valerie and really kind of getting a sense of like what it is you're trying to accomplish. She can, she's pretty good about reaching out to me and like, hey, they have concerns about this or they have specific questions about this. And then me or my counterpart, Ashley, will jump on a call and answer these type of questions. I think also what we're going to do for a little while is based on this, this call, anybody who ends up signing up, no matter what package, we're going to do a couple extra little things for them. We'll do like an SEO audit. We'll do schema integration, which we're, kind of saving for just our kind of high-end package. But those 2 items we'll go ahead and do on any level package. And if you happen to get the package that's includes those, then we'll offset something else. I don't know what right now, but we'll figure it out and make it worthwhile.
All right, sir. So that is just Valerie at getstudents.com. Or if you just want to give her a call, no, don't email. It's my daughter. She's got twins and a 7-year-old.
There you go, right?
Email her first. Okay.
Sir, could I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm sorry to jump in. Do they recommend multiple sites when you have different programs, or can one site service multiple?
So that's a bit of a tough question. Let me answer it the way it's supposed to be answered, and then I'll give you a caveat. You absolutely should never have separate sites for services unless they're separate businesses. The only time you should make a separate site is for a separate business. There's 2 reasons for that. One, you're not supposed to do it by the guidelines of Google. It's just not something they recommend. But mostly more importantly, is that you can't properly manage multiple sites. Most people can't properly manage one site. When you have 2, 3, 4, in order for them to actually work the way you're thinking they're going to, you need to treat them like a business. So you need to have unique content. You have to update it regularly. You have to have, different addresses, different phone numbers, different everything. It's a lot of work. This is a question that comes up, maybe not because of this, but it's a big part of it is because about 5 years ago, there was a big weight that was given to exact match domains. So if your site said Boca Raton Karate and you had Boca Raton Jiu-Jitsu, if people searched Boca Raton Jiu-Jitsu, you would show up number 1 every time. If they searched karate, you'd show up. And so there was this big trend of like, I'm going to get exact match domains for each one of my services because I'll rank better. I'll get more traffic. I'll get more flow. The people who are searching for Krav Maga or Taekwondo or karate, they don't look at it and say, oh, this is a martial arts dojo that provides it versus this is a single site dedicated to it, in my opinion, and make a huge difference. So if it's from a ranking SEO marketing perspective, I would say one site absolutely solves it. If you truly have a business plan that's separating 2 separate businesses, then I could see the case for having secondary or third sites.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Okay, everyone, we are going to sign off. We're out of time. I did make a recording of this. If you want a recording, I will send it out to you. Again, Brent, thank you very, very much for spending time with us.
Thanks for listening. I know I talk a lot, so I appreciate it.
It was awesome. Everyone's giving you a thumbs up.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.